and start thinking now about what questions you still have that haven't been answered so far in our workshop. So I'll get started with talking about downloads first. The workshop has, of course, focused on our beta site today, but at the moment, our beta site does not offer downloads. So this is expected to change over the next few months. And what you're most likely going to see in a few months is if you come to a specific study of interest, you'll see another tab here for downloads, and that will be the main point from which you can download either entire data sets or a specific subset of data that you've created. And it's also where you'll be able to find important study documentation that the team has made publicly accessible, like the code books or other protocols, materials of that sort. So that will be in a very centralized, easy to find download location. At the moment, if you are interested in downloading data, you'll have to do it from our ClinEpiDB.org, our main website. And here, there's a few different ways to access data. You'll notice that on the study cards, there is a little sign that says download data for each one. For some studies, like the PRISM, data is completely public, and if I click on it, I'll be taken directly to the download page. For others, like this Amazonia isomer data, if I click it, I will find that it has a data access restriction. And I think roughly half or over half of the studies we have on our website have some level of data access restrictions that require me to submit a data access request before that has to be approved by the team before I can download. So just to give people a sneak peek of what that looks like, if you click on the submit data access request, and you'll notice that I'm actually already signed in with a personal account here that doesn't have access to the data, that you'll see that this top portion gets filled in automatically with my account information. So my name, email address, and organization that I've put in. And then I'll have to submit a purpose, whether I've discussed my request with the study team, my hypothesis, analysis plan, and how I plan to disseminate results. And if you do submit one of these, the purpose that you submit will appear on the study page. So for instance, if we look at the GEMS study page, we can look at the data access records, and here you get a list of everyone who has requested access, where they're from, when they requested access, and their stated purpose. The rest of what you fill out won't appear on this page, but this is to help people understand, who is requesting data, why they're requesting it, and also hopefully, help people identify potential collaborations if someone else has a similar question to you. So that's the main way to request access to a data set. If you do request access in that way, I'll show you quickly with a publicly accessible study. If I click it for PRISM, it takes me to a page where I can download individual files, for the participant level data, the observation level data, et cetera. The other way to download data from is there a question?
Sheena was maybe just going to point out what happens if you request data. As Sheena indicated, many studies make the data publicly available, or some of the data publicly available without any permission required. The data access request is dependent on the data providers, and the nature of the approval process varies from study to study. In some cases, approval is automatic. In other cases, it requires a waiting period with a passive approval process. In other cases, it requires approval by the study investigators. That is up to the data providers. But it is worth pointing out that in all cases, the data providers are certainly keen to make sure that their data is used for public health impact. And the approval process has typically been very quick and very successful. The vast majority of requests, 90% or more, have been approved. So that shouldn't really be an impediment to being able to access the data. And if you instead are a data provider looking to use ClinEpiDB for providing access to your data, as some of you already are, you will know that we sort out the details of how approval takes place in advance of any data being made public.
Yeah, thank you, David. And if you want to check in a little more depth for yourself, you can look at our studies table from this first option and this first dropdown. And study accessibility will tell you what levels of data access restrictions are in place. So protected means that the study team reviews the request and they either passively or actively approve it. Public means you don't have to submit a request to download the data. Pre-release means the data has not yet been released. And then the last one I wanted to mention is controlled. And this one is you submit a data access request, but as soon as you've submitted it, you're granted access to the data. Okay, so that's one portion of the downloads. The other way to download the data from our live site is if you create a specific subset of data within. So you'll notice that this site looks a little bit different than the beta site. But say I've created this subset looking only at people from Nagangara, and I go to the view, I then have the option to download here. And again, this will be protected for any studies that have data access restrictions in place, and you'll have to have an account that's been granted access to get to this page. But from here, you can create more bespoke tables to download from. So that's the overview of how to download data. Other things that are worth pointing out about our site, and for this, I'll just go ahead and use the beta site, but it's the same on our live sites. Dan was pointing to similar sections on MicrobiomeDB, but we have a few different pages, which as you're exploring, you might want to check out. So we have a frequently asked questions section, and you can take a look at information here. Some things that are particularly helpful are things like, how do I cite ClinEpiDB, or how do I, notify, how do I cite it? And then this covers both, like if you are citing that you've deposited data in here in our resource, and also if you are actually using data that you've accessed via ClinEpiDB, the two different ways you might want to cite us. Other things that might be important is if you really want to understand how we use ontologies, which is not something we really covered in today's workshop. And then we also have a help section, which has additional tutorials, webinars, and all of our workshop material will be linked here. So under this schedule, we will upload the recordings from today, and you'll be able to access that here. And you'll also be able to continue to access the exercises from our breakout sessions today. But you'll also be able to take a look at our tutorials and past webinars as well. So those are helpful things to know on our site, and we will be updating all of these sections as we go along, as we progress with the development of our beta platform, and as that shifts to become our main platform. So that, I think, covers the main portion of today's workshop. And so now it's really just